Hello and welcome to Paper Plays Julie K.
Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for stopping by to check out my latest video. And I'm here today to kind of do a final craft studio, craft room reveal. As some of you know, I have been working these last couple months on moving items from my previous craft room up into my new craft space. I was very fortunate in being able to have a brand new building built on our property, and it does house this craft space and a little bit of office space for me. And there's also a space for my husband in this building. It is separate from our house, which we live in a cabin. And I just wanted to show you guys kind of how it ended up looking. And I am hand holding the camera, so I do apologize if you get a little dizzy, but I'm going to try to move slow. So here is like our front entrance. And that's a door that leads into my husband's space. And then also there's a back door on his side of the building and a little bit of an entryway. And when I was trying to decide what type of style I wanted in my craft room, I did end up going with what I would call maybe a flea market style with some like vintage antique stuff and also a little bit of shabby. And I decided to go that route just because then kind of everything fits and it doesn't matter if everything matches perfectly. And I also knew when I came up with a new craft room or a new craft space, I didn't want IKEA. I know a lot of people enjoy IKEA, but it's not my style. And so I do love how my new space turned out. And so just getting right into the tour here, right when you walk in, off to the left, there's kind of an alcove space here. And so I did set up a couple different islands. And this sector, I house some of my paper crafting items. Some of you guys, if you watch my channel regularly, you know that I'm into doing a number of different crafts. I enjoy doing paper crafts as far as making junk journals, card making. I also do a little bit of mixed media. I enjoy playing with fabric and lace. And I also like repurposing items that I find at the thrift store. And before I get more into the video, I did also want to give everyone a hint to make sure that you guys stay to the end of the video because I do have a couple of things that I'm giving away. So stay tuned for that. And so getting back to the little bit of the tour, this is my paper sector. I have a couple paper sectors actually. I have this wonderful little cabinet here that houses plastic bins. And these were part of a system that was a plastic cart with wheels on it, which that fell apart a long time ago just with the weight of the paper. But one of my old neighbors was kind enough to build me a system to be able to rehouse the containers, and I love it. And I've had this in my craft room for probably about a year and a half, so it's not new to me. I haven't decided if I want to paint it yet or not, so it's still natural wood. And I have a couple old containers left from my previous craft rooms. When I first started crafting, this is how I stored a lot of my supplies, in these little containers with drawers. And so I still have a few of those left. There's overflow paper and some rubber stamps in them. And kind of keeping with the vintage flea market style, I did hang up stuff on the wall. I do have some like shelf sitters and some antique stuff located in my space, which I love. And if you walk down here, you can see I do have some more paper. This rack came from a scrapbooking store that went out of business that I bought a long time ago. And then when you turn this way, I also have another paper rack system. And that one is on wheels, so it's really nice, so I can move it around. And again, my old neighbor, Bill, created that for me. I did pay him to create those, and I've had that in my craft room too for probably a year or so. This fun little shelf does have glass doors that slide. And in the past, I've stored ribbon in here, my craft room, and now in my new space, I revamped it to house my Tim Holtz Sizzix die cuts. And there's still room to add some more. And this was a shelf that I was gifted for free a long time ago, and I repainted it and distressed it. And then also I have a paper rack right there for 8.5 by 11 paper. And I use put my mostly cardstock in there. And that one I spray painted a long time ago black, and eventually needs to be respray painted again. But it works well. And that again was something that I didn't pay a lot for. I think my dad found it for me, and I've had that since almost the beginning when I started crafting, and I was about 18 years old when I started paper crafting. So I've had that for a long time, because now I'm closer to 50 than I am to 20. So just to let you know how long I've had that in my craft rooms over the years. Here's a couple fun little shelves, and on these I am storing cigar boxes with different embellishments and different things in them. Right now you see a lot of the yellow sticky notes on them. I did label them, and my plan is to put some drawer pulls on each of the cigar boxes and label them, but I just haven't done that yet. So I just had the sticky notes if I put something in them, and as you can see I still have some empty ones yet that are empty without anything in them. And the cigar boxes, most of them were thrifted from the thrift store. A couple of them I did pick up at an antique mall. But usually cigar boxes are kind of expensive at antique malls, so I try and thrift them when I can find them. And this little sector I've had for a while for my craft room. They're little cubicles that you can stack and move around. And here I store more 12 by 12 paper, the ones that are actually in the 12 by 12 paper pads. And then the little gray containers or totes that you see, I have some embellishments and stuff. And then also in this sector, I do have some other containers that have washi. I keep my charms, some miscellaneous embellishments, brads, eyelets in some of these containers also. And then also in some of these bottom gray containers, I do have like the chipboard pieces and like paper crafting embellishments that you buy that match the 12 by 12 paper pads. And then kind of panning back up again, I do have some more cigar boxes over in this sector and some more washi tape. When I back up, you can see this little sector. I am housing some of my mounted and unmounted stamps in the gray cabinets. The larger gray cabinet has wood mounted stamps on them. And then the two the two gray dressers, I have unmounted stamps in those. And then also on top here, I do store my embossing folders in plastic containers. And just a little shelf of some items that I've created or I've been gifted, and a couple of vintage cards. Now scrolling back around, in this little cabinet, I store some of my mixed media paints. And then I also have like extra glue or adhesives in there. And the little basket that sits on top, I don't know about you guys, but I've always had a spot in my craft room, a box or a tote, where when I go shopping or thrifting, I usually put everything in that tote, and then I unload it from there as I have time. And so that's what this basket is for, is stuff that I need to reorganize, or when I buy new things or I thrift things, I'll put them in there. And then every time I walk into my craft room, I try to put away something that's in there. And currently right now is just stuff that I brought up still from my cabin, from my old space, that I still need to put away. There's some bags of lace and stuff, mainly is what's in there, that I need to reorganize and put away into new spots, into this new space. And then here's where I store the rest of my mounted stamps. And these drawers were made by my dad and a friend of his. And I've had these for a long time also in a couple of different craft rooms that I've had over the years. And on top of my space, I do have a little cutting station for my die cuts, because I do like to stand when I'm die cutting. So I do have my die cut machine there, and I also have a Cuttlebug and a Cricut that I can exchange out and put on this top. And then here was kind of a fun item that I thrifted. I think it's like a plate holder, and what I ended up doing is putting my like cutting plates in here, and so that keeps it up off of the desk a little bit or the tabletop, and I really like that so far. It's been working well. And then I'll back up again here. I do have put my paper cutters in that little container right there, and I can take them out and move them up on top of this tabletop if I need them. And in this little sector, I am storing a majority of my paper punches, and I also have my Cricut machine in there. And on top, I have like my Zutter binding machine, my old Cuttlebug, and different accessories that go with those kind of things. And of course, as you guys are watching, if you have more specific questions, I can do kind of a second follow-up video. If you're interested in actually seeing inside of my drawers or having me pull things out, I'm more than willing to do that. But I just decided today just to kind of do a walkthrough and talk about each item. But if you want me to go into things more specifically, I'm very willing to do that. So here I did find a couple of old picnic baskets, and these are great for storing projects or also storing material. And then here's another little shelf that's just a particle board shelf. Sometime down the road I would love to replace this with a real wood shelf, but for now it's working, and we already had this in our house before. So and here I am using it to store my cutting dies, the rest of my cutting dies, not the Sizzix ones, but the thin ones. And I originally started storing them in 3-ring binders, and now I'm slowly switching over to putting them in the clear envelopes on magnet sheets. And this little next sector right here, this nice little dresser is one that I repurposed. It was a dresser that belonged to one of my grandmas. And so I did redo that one, and inside of that one I store more unmounted rubber stamps. And then I tried kind of throughout my space, I put all these sorts of small shelves like this, and they're intermixed with craft supplies and also like shelf sitters. Some items are vintage and some are not, but it's just kind of fun. And then I also have items that I've been gifted from other wonderful crafters through the years, sitting throughout my craft space. And in this little sector down the road, I do have plans for possibly putting another dresser or something there. But for right now, I have this fun little towel rack, and I'm just using that to store bigger pieces of doily and laces and stuff that I use for backgrounds when I take pictures for my thumbnails for YouTube, and if I post anything to Instagram, and that works kind of nice. And that little board hanging on the wall right there is an item I found at a rummage sale for a couple bucks, and I just use that again for some of my YouTube thumbnails, but I could definitely hang a couple of cards or something fun that I've gotten from crafty friends on there. I just haven't gotten around to it. So I'm going to back up here a little bit so you can see this space a little bit better. So this is a really tall industrial shelf that we've had for a while, and I repurposed it into my craft space. It's a nice catch-all area, or an area where I store extra supplies, like one of the totes in there has boxes I can alter. I have some unmounted stamps I still need to organize in one of them. I have off-season Christmas stuff, Valentine's Day, Halloween, and projects I've started but I haven't finished. I also have a couple bins at the very bottom that I put acrylic paint in just because it didn't fit in the other spot that I had designated for mixed media stuff. Also, extra totes have, you know, extra envelopes and some card making stuff. So things like that is what I'm storing there. And then in this little corner back there, that wood lawyer's case, I do have some items in there also. I still am working on organizing that a little bit better, but I have lots of envelopes in there for junk journaling and card making. I also, in the middle part of it, I store all of my Cricut cartridges because I still have, one of the original Cricuts. I haven't transitioned to anything else because I don't use it very often. And on the bottom, I have a little bit more of my mixed media stuff. I also have a couple of boxes of vintage postage stamps down there. And again, another shelf on top that I have intermixed with. There's craft supplies and also, fun little shelf sitters. Some things like this little thing my mom made. This little doll, she crocheted the dress on her. Items I've gotten from crafty friends also. So just kind of fun stuff. I'm going to back up again here. And in this fun little dresser unit, I do house a lot of my trims and laces. And I have them organized somewhat by color and style in there. And then on top, I have some items that have been gifted to me, but I also repurposed this box for storage. I don't have anything in there right now, but it's a recipe box that I redid. And I also have this fun little unit right here that I house my glitter and similar products for card making in there. And on top you can see jars are really fun things to find at the thrift store. You can get them for next to nothing. You can also buy them at the Dollar Tree if that's where you like to shop, but I like to find mine at the thrift store. So those two house some of my vintage crocheted pieces that you might find off of pillowcases and stuff like that. And so I put them in there. And in this fun little dresser unit, my husband did buy that for me. I've always wanted a French provincial dresser, and so he did purchase that for me. So that was kind of fun for my new craft space. And in this one, I house your basic ribbons, and also I have a lot of doilies in there. And underneath on the floor, if you look, I have some of my junk journal items there that I can easily pull out and craft with. And again, I kind of set it up looking kind of like a flea market, vintage, flea market antique store style. And again, I intermixed craft supplies in with fun stuff. Here's a couple of cheese boxes, and one of them belonged to my old neighbor, and the other ones I thrifted. And they were kind of fun just to stack. And I think I put material inside of those ones, but they work great for storage. This little shelf unit I did buy at Hobby Lobby when it was 75% off, I think it was last year. And again, another fun little unit just to intermix some craft supplies in with some fun items like the bird. I like birds, so you'll probably see birds kind of throughout my craft space. Also old jewelry boxes are really fun to store items. That was one that belonged to my grandma, that my grandpa had given her. And I also like to display any fun little antique books that I found. And so here's a couple that I found at the thrift store. So now I'm going to back up again so you can kind of see the rest of this space. And there is a table right in the front, and I'm not sure if I'm keeping that or not. It's just a folding table. I'm just trialing out right now if I like a table there or not. So just something I'm trialing right now. In this fun little dresser, this one I store linens and tablecloths that I use for different projects. And again, at the very bottom, that's actually empty containers that I use for junk journaling sometimes, or if I'm doing several projects at once and I want to keep certain pieces out and together. It's kind of separated into little units in there so I can have, you know, a couple different cubbies for different things. And I was able to thrift that piece. And another fun little shelf unit, again, intermixed with craft supplies and vintage items and items that I've created or been gifted. Some of those little glass jars I store my flatback pearls in. It's also fun to use if you have any like vintage muffin tins. They're really fun to store items. You know, this is a little spice rack thing. Some of them I have items in it, like here's like my overflow flatback pearls. And then some of them have like absolutely nothing in them. But spice jars work great for stuff like that. And again, I'll just back up so you can kind of see the space again that I'm going to be talking about next. So in this sector, right next to where I store the linens, I have another shelf unit, bookcase, and here I like to keep my coloring items. So I have markers, I have my chalks, my chalk pastels, those kind of things in there. A couple of the boxes don't have anything in them yet, so some of them are empty. And on top, I have another shelf unit, again, intermixed with craft supplies and other items. And the walls in my new space are quite large. I have 10-foot walls, so I do have a lot of space on the walls. At some point down the future, I'd like to hang more things on the wall. Another little dresser unit, I plan on repurposing that one. But right now I have one of the drawers, I have some embellishments, like miscellaneous embellishments. And the other one I have like paint brushes and stuff like that in it. I also have this old cabinet right here. It's a metal cabinet, and I believe it used to hold like radio parts. And I got that from my dad a long time ago. Again, that's been in my craft room for a very long time. And again, it holds small embellishments. I'll just open one of the drawers just so you can kind of see as little cubbies in there. And so you can put things in them. And these are all the original like descriptions of whatever was in there. I just left it. And let's see, this little sector, I do have another little muffin tin. This one's heart-shaped. And again, I just have some random things. Sometimes if you need an embellishment and you're working on something, it's fun to have easy access to a few things. And if I can't find what I want in here, then I go and find it in one of the boxes that I have in my sector where I house embellishments. And now we're getting into my desk space, and I have two different desks right here. And on this one right here, you can see baskets at the bottom. I have my coffee dyed paper that I can just grab readily. I have glitter, my distressed glitter, embossing powders and stuff right there. And in this little sector, I have some overflow stamp pads that don't fit into my other unit. There's hand wipes. I have a container of tools like a screwdriver and stuff in there. Overflow embossing powders. And then on top, I do have another shelf unit. And on this one, I just decided to store some of the like Perfect Pearls Mists and distressed stains that I use a lot. I do have another spot for the rest of them, but just the ones I use a lot, I keep there. And this is empty, but what I like to do is, like, if I'm working on a project and I need a couple different things, like I might put my distress stains, and then if I want to use, you know, an embossing powder, I'll stick that in there too. And then I can set it on my desk and it keeps it contained. And then another little sector, again, items I've received from other people. But this, I house some of my markers, like my Sharpie markers and like scrapbooking pens. And again, I can take this down if I need it on my desk, but I can also easily set it up. In the background, you can see stamp pads, and that actually is like an old cassette player holder or cassette tape holder. And I just found that one at the thrift store. I do have this one that I've had for a long time, and it's pretty much full. So when I found this one, I think it was a couple bucks for that. That one I did buy it, and I actually bought a third one that's just sitting on that industrial shelf just because they were a great deal. And down the road, if I want, I could hang those actually on the wall, but right now they're just sitting on top of things. And then here was one that I purchased early on when I started crafting. It was, you know, a huge purchase for me at the time because it was spendy, but that company Stamp and Storage. This one holds my stamping pads and markers and re-inkers that match in part of it. And then the other part is just kind of some miscellaneous markers and stamp pads and pens and stuff that I just stick in there. I do have a couple small shelves that I repurposed or redid that house different things. Like this one, I just put my seam binding on it. That one right there, I have just a couple of fun little stamps that I use quite a bit, like my journal one, and this book belongs to stamp to from. I use those ones quite a bit. Then here's my main area where I work and craft. I do have this that rolls. It's on like a Lazy Susan, so you can turn it around. And I have paper punches and scissors and just all sorts of little random things in there that I grab for. I also have another little shelf unit back here that houses some of the stamp pads I use more often, my Tim Holtz ones, and then also my archival inks. And then I have a few of my re-inkers that I use more often sitting there. The rest are in storage or on top. And then again, here's, you know, an old spice rack that I have some of my re-inkers in there, the ones that I use more often. A fun little thing that I found at the thrift store for a couple of bucks that I'm able to put my decorative scissors in. I'm not quite sure what it originally was made for, but I thought it worked perfect for scissors, so. And then my desk. And here's another little shelf unit I repurposed and set on top of my desk. My old craft room, I did have built-in shelves, but that wasn't an option for right now within my budget for my new space. And I did want something to sit on top of my desk that I could put some of my basic supplies for, and I also needed some sort of mount for my camera system. When I record, this is what I use to record with my camera. Hooks up right there onto that. And if you look at the shelf unit, I just have random things. I did store some of my more commonly grabbed for punches, and I can change them out with my other punches in the other area. Like if I'm working on Christmas stuff, I can move, you know, the Christmas ones over here and move these over into the other sector. And then I do have like a portable paper cutter. I keep my tape, you know, I use my corner rounders and stuff quite a bit. So those kind of things. I do have items in my drawers, and I'll just open up one drawer. If you guys are interested in seeing the rest of the drawers, just let me know and I can do another follow-up video. But just sorting like paper clips and, you know, different things in my drawers. Moving along to the other side of my desk, I always have some sort of paper towel holder. And I did thrift this one. I do like this one because it sits up a little bit so I can put items underneath it. And so I did put my glues underneath there in this little container. And then behind here, I do have some drawers with some items in it. Also this really small shelf where I put my like handmade with love stamps or hand stamped by stamps that I grab quite a bit. And another little spice rack, and this one I use to store my stickles and liquid pearls. So I'll back up again. I do have a bulletin board. I still don't have anything on it yet, but I do have that to write down, like, if I have any deadlines or upcoming projects, my shopping list. And over in this little sector, I do have another paper rack, and I like to use this paper rack for current projects or like if current holidays. So we just got done with Valentine's Day, so I would have had Valentine's Day paper in there, and then I put it back in its other spot when the season's done. But sometimes it's nice to just have it close to the desk space where you're working. And underneath there, for my card making, I do like to add like the mulberry flowers, paper flowers, and so I do have them in these totes. I have them sorted by color. And a little container. I like to keep a couple things close by just for junk journaling, like envelopes and different things, so I do have that little container. I do plan on repurposing this and painting it a different color, because I don't like that that orange is showing through, but it was $1 at the thrift store, so I'll paint it this summer when I have a chance, when I'm painting some other things. And so backing up, you can see I have a ton of different carts. I like this one. This one's the We Are Memory Keeper trays, and you can take those trays off, and this is what I use for current projects or things I'm working on. So you can take the tray off and work on it, things, and then you can stick the tray back on it. Over here, this one on the far left, this one right here, is actually like a hairdresser cart, and I store some of my junk journal stuff in there, like my actual junk, like tags and envelopes and different things to alter to put into my junk journals. And then here's carts like what you see at Michael's or IKEA that you can buy. These ones I do store my leftover paper scraps or junk journal kits, like when you buy a digital kit and if you print them off. So I have them organized by company or the name of the kit if I printed them off. And then cardstock, you know, I have them organized by color. And at one point I did do organize it like rainbow colored, but then I always found that I was trying to dig out the ones that were further down. So I try and use the current colors that I'm using in projects. I set those at the top just so they're easier to grab. But I also have some of these clear envelopes that have other things in them, like I might have a paper ephemera that relates to a theme that I want to do junk journals for. So there might be birds or vintage or whatever I'm working on too. I do have some of them sorted out. And again, if that's something you guys are interested in seeing more of, I can pull them out and go through them a little bit more step by step. And again, this one is still a work in progress, but I have some smaller envelopes where I've cut out ephemera. I still need to label them and organize that a little bit better for junk journaling. And I was waiting, I just got another order in from Amazon, so I was waiting until I got that in so that I could finish that project. And in the final cart here, I do have these little plastic storage bins. And I've bought these in the past at like Joann's, Michael's, and also Tuesday Morning carries them. But they work great to store smaller embellishments also. And this is more of my like card making stuff. So when you buy like die cuts, and after I've already opened them up, I put them into themes. So like I have vintage, nautical, shabby, chic, floral, and I can grab that one out just so you can see what I'm talking about. I also do like the wood pieces are in some of these. So it is a pretty full containers in here. Again, if you're interested in seeing more of that, just let me know. And then this little sector, I do have another desk right here. And this sector is all junk journal, or the majority, 99% of it's junk journal stuff. You know, there's some items I've made to add to journals. I also have some sectors here with just like empty shipping tags and stuff that can be decorated. Again, on that industrial shelf, I do have containers full of this stuff. But sometimes when you're crafting, you just want to be able to grab a couple things. So I do have a few of those kind of things in there. Kind of the same when you look up at top, very similar. This little unit does the same thing, index cards, envelopes, different junk journal stuff to decorate. I do have a couple of little notebooks intermixed because that is one of the things I enjoy making, is decorating composition notebooks, big and small. So I do have those right there, and then I have some sitting right here just to grab. And then in here I have like the Tyvek envelopes, and I also have manila folders, and I like to recycle. So these ones have all been used before, and I just use those when I'm crafting. On top, again, I just have, you know, some fun stuff, some vintage books, and I repurposed this one. I've been looking for more containers like this at the thrift store, but I've been painting them and stenciling on them. And in this one, I did put some actual vintage items. These are all Valentine's in here and anniversary cards, and those will probably always stay there because those ones were my grandma and grandpa's. They sent each other and they kept them all, so I don't think I'll ever use those in anything, but they're fun to look at. I like to read what they wrote each other and what, you know, some of them were from when my grandpa was in the war, and so he'd send them to my grandma. So, you know, there's a lot of personal notes in there about how things are going, and my grandma, you know, wrote in hers how the kids were doing, those kind of things. So, and then moving along on this sector, on the end of it, I do have another unit here that slides similar to the one that I put my Sizzix cutting dies in. This one has my higher end laces and trims in here, and I use mat board, so I have extra mat board sitting up on top in that container, and that's what I wrap my laces and trims around. Some of you guys know that my husband does wildlife photography, and so he does cut some of his own mats for his photos, and so those are the like leftover pieces, so it works perfectly. I'm able to recycle and reuse something that we don't have to put in the recycling bin to wrap my laces. And this one, like I said, are just the higher end laces. The ones that I grab more often are housed in this sector. And again, underneath I just have some boxes for storage. Right now a lot of my boxes are empty, which is fine. I do like to always have a couple step stools in my craft area because I'm short, or as my husband says, vertically challenged. And so sometimes I have to step on things to reach the top shelf. So it's always nice to have a couple extra shelves, or it's not shelves, but step stools. And this little sector now, we're getting close to the end. This is what we have left to look at. This little sector is kind of more my sewing area, my sewing machine, and I did decide to put my sewing machine in front of the window so I could look out. If we have any fun birds or deer or anything in the yard, I can look out and see that. But here I house, you know, some of my doilies that I didn't put in the drawers. It's just fun to see them out, and I put them on a little plant stand I found. And I also added a little bit of bling. I do have items, again, sitting around that other people have gifted me. This is a little tiered tray thing. Again, I picked this up at Hobby Lobby a long time ago on the clearance when it was 75% off. And then I put it on a Lazy Susan, so you can turn it around. And inside of it, I have been looking for little jars for embellishments. I have brads, there's buttons, just kind of random things. The little like clear dewdrop things. I don't know what else you call them. But I do like that I can turn it around, because I can also turn it around when I'm standing on the other side of my craft space to grab things if I need to. Then in this little buffet dresser unit, I did repurpose this past summer. It was my project, and it was definitely a labor of love, but I love how it turned out, and it was a bright yellow when I started, just to let you know how different it looks now. And in here, I roll up, if you look into the windows, I roll up my material and laces. A lot of it's like the lace curtains you buy at the thrift store. The majority of my material I pick up at the thrift store or at rummage sales. I think I only have 2 or 3 actual things in there that I actually purchased at the craft store. Everything came, you know, from rummage sales or was thrifted. And then next to that, there's another little unit here. I am just housing some of my wood spools. Again, a box I created for a past design team. In this box, I have like flowers that I've made. And at the very bottom, I have like my vintage rickrack in that container, and it's sorted by colors. I'll see if I can pull it out so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. And there's also some lace. But rickrack and the vintage seam binding. More material in the bottom, and then in the top part, which I know you can't see very well, there's some material. But I also have a container in there that houses some of the items I'm using for flower making, you know, that I've maybe started making flowers but didn't finish. So I have that in there. And on top, for the rest of it, I know I showed you guys that tiered tray. Again, I just have an intermix of stuff I've made, people have gifted me. You know, this one has some laces and trims that people have gifted me, embellishments people have gifted me. This is kind of fun. This is one of those little terrarium things. You're supposed to put flowers in it, but I use it to put snippets. And I've always kept my Angel Dream Crafts snippets in here. I was on Kim's design team, and so I like to keep them separate from my other snippets. So I did put them in there. Fun little bird cage thing that I made a long time ago. And then as far as the rest of my lace snippets go, I put them all in this unit, and I have them in baggies. At some point I'd like to put them in something other than baggies, but I'm not quite sure what yet. But I do have them sorted out like this one right here. If you look really close, this is a little bit of my nicer laces. I do have some that are sorted out by color. Like this one right here is more of the flower ones. So if you look closely, you can see flowers in there. So that's what's in those. And they're, like I said, they're somewhat organized. This big one right here is for junk journals, like if I'm making tags and I need ribbons for the tags. I always go here first before I grab anywhere else. And then another little bookshelf unit. I find little glass jars, like I said before, they're fun to decorate and put stuff in them. But like in this one of my mom's neighbors gave me all of her old junk jewelry with bead stuff, and so I do like to add beads trim like this to items, so I just put all the shabby colored ones in here. This is feathers. That's crochet thread in that one. And then as you go scroll down and look, I have some of my nicer snippets in here. I put bead trims in here. There's tulle. In those other plastic containers, there's more snippets. And down there, I have some more bling, and that box that's kind of has Paris on it. I don't know if you can read that or not from here. I have other buttons in there, and I do have some buttons in that jar also. This fun little sector right here is for my sewing thread. I need to finish it up, but this is something I found at the thrift store. It has the spools in it, so I can put thread on it. And you'll probably see on my YouTube channel coming up. I'm going to finish that project off. A container where I put my eyelash trim, my sewing machine desk. And after my sewing machine, I'm just going to pan around a little bit here just so you can check and kind of see where we are in relation to the rest of the room. Again, we started over there with all the paper area. So right here, I do have this little island, and I created this island. I'm hoping to someday thrift or find something on Facebook Marketplace that's a little island. But for now, I just thrifted the countertop, and I put 3 bookshelves together. And Again, here I just store miscellaneous craft supplies in the little totes. Someday I would like to maybe replace them out with more vintage looking totes, but for right now you got to use what you have. So I'll kind of walk around that so you can kind of see. You know, I have some more eyelash trim and stuff like that in some of those totes. And then in this little sector right here, this is a pegboard system. And originally it was supposed to be in my husband's space, but then he decided he didn't want it. And so I've just been trialing out lately different things on it, just trying to decide exactly what I want to put on it. But once I got it in my space, I actually put wheels on it so I can move this around wherever I want in my craft room. On this side, I did find that it worked really nicely for my longer like sewing rulers and stuff, and also my pieces for my replacements for my paper trimmer. Also a place to hang my hoops that I use, that I alter every once in a while. I put a couple of my larger size stencils right here, my furniture stencils. And on top I have some different miscellaneous stuff, but this is the main thing I wanted to show you, is another little Lazy Susan thing. And here I store the rest of my ink sprays. And again, I can lift this up if I want. If I'm doing a lot of mixed media, I can lift this whole thing up and put it on my desk. But when I'm not using it, it can just sit here. And then I did put some baskets on this side of the pegboard. So now turning back around to where the sewing machine desk was, I did pick up a couple of these fun sewing machine drawers. I just love these things, and I'm hoping to get some more. I did redo this one a little bit. I painted it black. It was a different color. And so I did paint that black because I didn't like the original color. And this one in the middle right here, it didn't have a top on it or a bottom. It just had the guts of it, is what I would call. And so I did paint it black because I needed to match it to whatever type of wood I put in the top. And my dad was kind enough to cut me up some scrap wood that we could nail onto it, so now it's functional. And I also changed out the hardware because the other hardware that was on there wasn't the original hardware and I didn't like it. So I did find some black ones at Hobby Lobby to put on there. And this one I just got again recently, and so I still need to redo this one. Since the other two are black, I am going to paint the outside parts of it black. I'll leave this the original. And I want to just clean up the hardware a little bit. That's the original hardware, so. And most of these right now, I do have a couple little random things in them, but most of these are empty right now. I found this fun little thing at the thrift store. And so I'm going to use this to hold like my charms and stuff, my dangles. And the ones that are on there mostly are ones that have been gifted to me that I'll probably never use on anything, just because I like to keep stuff that people gift me. And underneath, I do have a basket with like a washboard on it, just to kind of make it look more like, seems like no matter what flea market you go to or antique store, there's always at least one washboard in it. I also have a couple other sewing machine drawers that I've put some of my nicer laces in. So I'll just kind of hold that up close so you can kind of look at those. And again, I'm just going to back up a little bit. And we're almost done. So here's another little sector. This is a vintage suitcase and like a kid's ironing board that I found at the thrift store. But the vintage suitcase I do want to alter and redo. And then I found a luggage rack to set it on. So eventually I'm going to be redoing that. So you'll probably see that at some point on my YouTube channel. And now the rest of the space is kind of my office space. There's a little bit of craft stuff over in this sector, but I did get a TV and that dresser that I set it on. I do house some craft stuff in there. And again, I would like to repurpose that dresser. The only thing I've done to it so far is new handles on it, and my dad put some of the bottoms weren't, they were broken, so he helped me fix those up so that it was functional. A little curio that I have like family stuff in it, like vintage teacups and some different things in that. I have this fun little Harrison Fisher picture. I know a lot of us junk journal people that do in a vintage style, a lot of the papers, and digital people use some of the Harrison Fisher women on it. And so this one's an early reproduction. And that photo actually my dad found in a building that was going to be torn down, and so he grabbed it thinking it was an original, but I've done a little research on it and it's an early reproduction. And in this sector I did put up my Christmas trees. I love Christmas, and I've always had these up year-round in my bedroom, but they do drive my husband nuts, so I told him I'd move them up here into my craft space. But a lot of it's ornaments I've made and friends have made for me. And this last year I did luck out and win some ornaments that were made by some other talented people on YouTube and on Facebook in a giveaway that was on Amy Love's channel. And so I was able to fill up, because before I only had one tree full, and now I have 2 trees full just because of that giveaway. So very appreciative and blessed for that, but it's kind of fun to have them up in my craft space now all year round. And I do have lights on them so I can plug them in. Another little cabinet, and this one does have legs on it, but again, this one I want to repurpose, and so I just left the legs off of it for right now. It was one of my grandma's, and right now I have some of the junk journals I've made and also ones that I've traded in swaps in there. And then this little sector right here is kind of my office or work area. I do house like craft books in this one, card making books. And then more items that I've gotten from friends or that I've made through the years. My work desk, and normally I have a computer sitting there, but it's down in the cabin right now. And let's see, this little sector again is work sector with a printer, and I just got this printer, so I'm really excited about that. My other one died, and so I haven't had one for about 6 months, and I haven't needed it for work or anything. So I did pick this one up when they were a little bit on sale. It's an Epson Eco Tank, so I'm excited about that. And I did go with the step up just because my husband does do wildlife photography, and so he can use it also for his photography, because our old printer that we use for photography is not working very well. So, and then again, I'll just back up again and kind of pan around. I did put in some furniture right in this sector, an old family trunk just that houses a couple more things that I want to alter inside of the trunk, but it works for a little coffee table for right now. And some furniture, and I had hoped to find a couch and a chair on Facebook Marketplace that somewhat matched, but I couldn't find anything. And so my husband did gift me with sets of furniture. We're fortunate in that one of our neighboring cities, there's a couple that owns, a small business furniture store. Most of it's kind of cabin, home decor type stuff, because we do live in lakes country. But she was kind enough to let me go through her catalogs and pick out something. So they did order that for me, and they have great prices. So I was happy to get that. I was joking with my husband that I thought maybe I should buy a futon so that I could just sleep up here all the time. But I did go with a little love seat and a chair. And so again, that's kind of a walkthrough of my craft space. If there's something that you want me to open up so you can actually see in my drawers, or you want to know more about, just feel free to ask, and I can do a follow-up video after I read everyone's comments. And so now the next step is I'm going to turn my camera off and reshoot a couple of things on my desk for you guys, because again, I did promise a giveaway. So I'll be right back with that. So now for the giveaway part of the video. While I was cleaning and moving stuff, I did come across a lot of items that I've created for design teams and other projects that I haven't gifted out. And so I thought, well, it'd be really fun to give a couple of my subscribers some items that I have created. And so I'm going to give away 2 items today. And I'm going to hold the giveaway open for, let's say, about 2 weeks. And then I will draw a name, and I'll use a random comment picker or a random number picker. So if you are interested in being eligible for the giveaway, number 1 is you do have to be 18 years of age or older. And I'm asking also that you subscribe to my channel. So if you haven't yet, make sure that you do that right now. And then, of course, just so I know that you want to be entered, leave a comment down below in the comment section and just say enter me. I am willing to send locally in the US or international, as long as I can send an item from the US to your country. I'm fine with that for this giveaway. So everybody is eligible if you meet those requirements. And so the 2 items that I'm giving away are an altered composition notebook and also a paper bag junk journal. And here's the paper bag junk journal. This was part of a design team project for Angel Dreams Crafts Kim that I did, I believe, last year. And I will link the actual video below so that you guys can kind of get a more thorough look of it. But I am giving this away as one of my giveaways. I do love the cover on this. This is probably one of my favorite covers that I've made in a long time on junk journals. So I'm excited for this to be in somebody else's hands, I guess. 'Cause I do love the cover on that. And then again, one of the other items I love creating with is composition notebooks. So I am giving away this one. And this one is made with graphic 45 paper. And it's just kind of a basic, you know, there's laces and trims and some flowers and flat back pearls on that one. And I did just have it blank, I guess, on the inside. I decorated the inside a little bit, but there's no pockets or anything on this one. And just notebook paper. So I will link those 2 videos so you guys can look at them a little closer if you want. And so again, leave comments below if you are interested in being entered. And then also in the links below, I'll also link my previous craft room if you guys are interested in seeing where I started from at our current cabin. It was in the basement and it was really dark down there, and in the winter time it was really cold. So part of the year I actually ended up crafting in my husband's office, which was upstairs. And so I kind of had a craft room and a half before. But it is really nice to have my new craft space, and I've been slowly starting to try and record and do a couple things in my craft room, getting used to my new space. So thank you everybody so much for watching. I know it was a really long video, but there was so much to show you guys and I wasn't quite sure how to do it. So it just, like I said, it'll just have to be a long video. So until next time, happy crafting. And again, I will post a video in a couple of weeks with the winner. And I will also write closed up in the title when I've officially closed it, and just so that you guys know, so that you look for the winner video of whoever won. So again, until next time, everybody, have a wonderful day and happy crafting.